Get a little book talk here. These are my books on Amazon. And I am proud of all the books that I did, but the one that I did recently, Puritan Storm Rising, is a very special book because it's something that I really started when I first started writing. I mean, this book has material in it that I did in the 1980s. It has material in it that I have worked on for really most of my time as a Christian writer. And I also have material by Jeff Sigler and Paul Jaley, who's a friend of ours in Plymouth, Massachusetts, and Peter Hammond, who's a friend of ours in South Africa. Um, Let me just give you an example of the paperback here. So we have paperback, we have Kindle, and we have audiobook, all available on Amazon. And one of the things that I was told recently by someone is that they really appreciated the fact that I'm very thorough in my table of contents. I like to put all of the subheadings, not all the subheadings, but the major parts here. And Puritan Storm Rising starts off with a foreword by Jeff Sigler, an introduction, and then we get right into the Reformation, and especially Knox and Cromwell. I say in the book that the American Revolution and the Christian American Logos is a Knoxian Cromwellian revolution. So that's part one of the book, going through the whole Puritan period, William Bradford and John Winthrop. And then we have the 1700s, which is now the impact of the Puritans on culture and politics, which we call Neo-Puritanism. And what I tried to do in this book is emphasize that it's not just theology and politics, but it's all of American culture was really impacted by these people. The Whitfield and Edwards, who were what is known as the Neo-Puritan movement, which is the first Great Awakening, going into the American Revolution, the abolition of slavery, the world missions movement, then into the 20th century and the 21st century. I even have a little section on Martin Niemöller, who was part of the resistance in Germany. Even though Niemöller was not a Calvinist or a Puritan, he was a Lutheran, he still was very influenced by the theology of resistance, of how things were laid down earlier. The United States of America 2.0 is actually a booklet that I did. I want to show you this. This was like the precursor to Puritan Storm Rising. And that's this book right here. And this was something that we were going to do as a booklet and a video. The video was going to be called Puritan Storm Rising. And I actually have quite a bit of video material that I'll show you in a minute here. But this is the Kindle version. And in the Kindle version, you can see that there's Jeff Sigler's forward. You can see this is very graphics intensive. This looks a little bit different than the layout of the paperback. Like the layout of this would be page by page if you were to look at this. But this is the paperback, and obviously the layout is set, and then in Kindle it's called reflowable, which means that you're going to get, you can do different sizes and so on. The footnotes are hyperlinked and so on. So for instance, in the paperback, in the Kindle, you would be looking at, here's my, oh, you can't get to that because it's only a limited preview. And then what's really good about this is you also have, if you want to pay just another $2, not $1.99 more, you can get not only the Kindle delivered immediately, but also the audiobook. And so the audiobook is in virtual voice. So I just wanted to let you know how this sounds here.
This title is narrated with virtual voice. Computer-generated narration for audiobooks. Puritan Storm Rising by J. Rogers, Jeff Ziegler, Paul Jettel, and
Paul
Peter
Jaley.
Hammond.
So you can read along as you're listening.
Forward by Jeff Ziegler. While evil is being codified at the highest level of American government, the Church is undergoing an enormous and historic paradigm shift. This realignment, which emphasizes a victorious ecclesiology and a biblically optimistic worldview, is nothing less than a renaissance of Puritanism, and is a precursor to the fuller acceptance of Reconstructionism across the parched domain of American evangelicalism. The rise of a generalized Puritan worldview is of great importance to the agenda for this sweeping resurgence. This Christian renaissance is rapidly preparing the church corporate in America as the agent for the most comprehensive societal reformation in this nation's history. Indeed, Neo-Puritanism is having its greatest effect among those evangelicals involved in the revival prayer movement, which has whet the appetite of many sincere saints who earnestly long for a golden age of strapping Christianity.
So you get the idea. The virtual voice is 99.9% accurate. There's a few words here and there, like it mispronounced Paul Jaley. And I can actually go in and correct that, so I have to listen to it myself. This just was published yesterday, so this has been up for a very short period of time. One of the things I wanted to show here is how a lot of the articles I've done for the Forerunner over the years, like this one on Sola Scriptura versus Sola Scriptura, this made it into Puritan Storm Rising in an appendix. And I also have, let's go to our menu here, something I'm kind of excited about, which is the video seminar. This was originally going to be a video, and I might produce a longer video, but basically the way it's set up now is I have a teaching and video seminar, which is basically a 12-week discipleship class, and I have a little outline of how you can teach it, just a suggestion on how to teach it. Obviously, people that are good teachers don't need me to tell them, but I have a little instruction on how to teach. And then each lesson covers a different part of the book. And this is geared for high school English. I actually am a high school English teacher, and I've actually used some of these lessons in my teaching. So I know it works. I know that you do get some pretty good responses from these questions. So then we have the video seminar. The video seminar goes along with the teaching seminar, so that if you wanted to have a discussion group and do lessons 1 through 12 like for homework, but then in the discussion group watch the videos. So you'd have the different speakers, like for instance in lesson 1 it starts off with I'll just give you a couple of snippets here. This is Peter Hammond speaking about the open air preachers of the Reformation.
Open air preaching is absolutely vital to the fulfilling of the Great Commission. Right from the very beginning in the church, we see in the book of Acts, Christians were preaching in open air, but the Reformation began through open air preaching. John Wycliffe, the professor of Oxford University, he was the greatest professor of the greatest university of the world at that time. He translated the Bible into English.
So some of these are high res, some of them are not. This is one that is.
Good drivers can save up to $1,200 a year with Root Insurance.
And of course,
we celebrate good drivers with savings. Just download the app and get on the road for a bit. Root Insurance, drive and save.
Of course, we have to put up with that.
Most American Christians today who ponder Calvinism or ponder the teachings of Calvin think of Tulip, they think of the 5 major doctrines, or let's say the clusters of doctrines of Calvinism. What often people will miss is that John Calvin was part of a stream of thought that came out of the Reformation. Whether you consider Luther, Calvin, Zwingli. Now,
so the point is that the book follows the flow of these videos, and I actually used quite a bit of the video material in writing the book. This is another friend of ours, Ron Auville, who did a little thing on John Knox, which is in the book as well. I did another book on John Knox too, which you can order.
What was thrust upon John Knox was learning from Calvin. John Knox being born in the early 1500s. At the same time, Luther and Calvin are writing, Luther and Calvin are ministering. In Scotland, of course, John Knox, and actually, believe it or not, John Knox was a low-level, what some people would call a priest in the Roman Catholic Church, with no real predilection to any kind of point existing. So John Knox views this martyrdom by the Roman Catholic Church, and he's really taken by.
So I had to rework a lot of the speaking, obviously, but it worked out pretty well. I also have, as here, you can watch Cromwell, which is a great great movie to watch if you're studying the Puritans. And we have a little.
Then I say the king is a thief.
It's a great. It's an interesting point. It's an interesting film because it's historically inaccurate in parts and then historically accurate in parts, and we discuss that in the book a little bit.
I see in this business not the hand of Strafford, but that of the king.
But great movie anyway. So this goes on for 12 lessons, and I also have people, you can watch Amazing Grace, which is about William Wilberforce. William Wilberforce was not a Calvinist or a Puritan, but he was influenced by people like John Newton and other Calvinists that were influenced by Whitefield and the Welsh Calvinistic Methodists, and also by John Wesley as well, who is a good friend of his. And then when we get into part 4, which I didn't discuss that much, but part 4 is my excursion into the British Christian Logos, British and Anglo-Saxon Christian Logos, which is really where America comes from. So we have the legend of Hen Justin Horsa, the pagan background of, anyway, that's a whole section of the book that I'm rather proud of. You can check it out. I wasn't originally going to write part 4. Let's just go back and I want to give you an example of what I'm talking about here. So this is the paperback. In the table of contents, you can see part 4 here. And I was going to include this as a short appendix, but then it just kind of grew after part 3, which is the Great Reset section. This is the Puritan Hope in the 21st century. Then I go back in time. We go back to the Celtic and Anglo-Saxon roots and talk about how in these pagan cultures there was this dragon slayer obsession and what's that all about and so on. How did Anglo-Saxon paganism come to Britain, which was somewhat Christian at that time, and then how did the Anglo-Saxons become Christians and how that developed throughout the centuries. And we also talk about some of the great literary classics by Christians who were in line with the Puritans, like people like John Bunyan, John Milton, and so on, coming all the way up to the anyway. So you can read that. I really like this part of the book. It's over 100 pages long. That's why I made it part 4 rather than an appendix. And then towards the end we have the theology, like what is tulip, what's the ordo salutis, what's sola scriptura, what's sola fide. And we talk a little bit about the praxis of Reformed theology, pastoral ministry, open air preaching, how to be a Christian activist, and then a brief word on the case for Christian nationalism, which you can read. And I just explain what Christian nationalism is in their own words. I call myself a Christian civilizationalist, and I don't get really into this issue, but you'll see the difference when you read the book. And then we have the teaching and video seminar, which I just showed you. Okay, so that's the book. I hope that you are able to take a look at it, consider buying it. And like I said, this is really like one of my favorite things that I've done since I've been doing Christian work.